Let's begin this practice. We're here to expand the chest and to help the circulation into the upper respiratory and to open up the sensation in the shoulders to loosen them back. So let this first supportive bridge pose, let it settle into your nervous system. So what I want you to have is your blanket is at the lowest height it could be behind you. And you're going to sit on a bolster, which is lengthwise on your mat. And a blanket is rolled up into a tube at the base, or you can use a bolster. That would mean you have two, but if you only got one right there, just use one bolster and roll up a blanket below the bolster towards the wall. If you don't have wall space, it's going to be fine. If you have a bag of weight, have it nearby. I have other things, block. I have a therapy ball. I got a belt all connected in a big loop. We'll get there later. But first things first, we're going to scoot to the edge of the bolster. And I'm definitely at the short end. And we all need to be at the edge of the bolster. So if you are looking at the wall and it's looming too close, then just scoot things back. You'll find out, because the looming closeness will not be so much when you lower back. Okay, so take the feet on the other edge of the blanket that's rolled up. Scooch the blanket or the bolster right to the base of your lower leg, to the ankle, not to the heel, to the ankle. And I try to wedge it in there. Okay. All right. Now, as I lower back, I'm going to work towards my head, lowering on my blanket, but my upper back is lifted on the bolster. It's so great. I love this one. This is definitely an interesting alignment project here, because we want to get this front space to open up, right? So the arms open out. Before you get all sanded, I want you just to do a little self-check on the head. Feels like it's dropping back, the chin lifts. Be sure you have something under your head, something, even if it's a small height, so that you can feel like you can kind of push back into it. Right? It doesn't need to be a hard floor. Okay? So if you're not sure, remember you're on the back, right? You sat on the edge to get there, but the bolster really is up high here. So what touches down will be my arms. And with gravity, things are going to slide down, you know. I mean, so that's why you want to be so high up in the beginning, because, yeah, gravity happens, right? So I have to find that as I lower back, and I don't mind going back up and resetting and just getting it so the bolster is supporting. I like the energy of touching the wall, right, with the balls of my feet. And then sand across the thigh lids, or sand across the ribs. Open up. Okay. So begin the breath pace, the focus breath pace. As you in-breath, you can feel the ribs kind of like a hole. There's a wholeness in the ribs when you breathe with this type of effect with the props under you, right? It's not like you're going to feel each particular rib. They work all on mass. It's really interesting, right? And so do the lung circulation. So as you stretch out the arms and feel as your head is falling back, and just surrendering to this optimal circulation for the breathing muscles. If your back feels a little tender, a little compressed, you can always bend your knees and set the feet so they're still at the base, but the bottoms of the feet are touching down. And that can be useful for so many of us. So you be the one who decides on the leg angle. And it might gradually work so that it's easy for you to reach down through the legs. But here's the particular shift on this one, is I'm not trying to push with my feet. I'm just working with this upper upper rib, upper chest area. So rare we can open this area up in a lot of our poses. It's usually a little bit below the clavicle, kind of subclavicular zone up here. So let the endocrine area, the endocrine glands, the thyroid, parathyroid, and the throat just kind of bask in the sunlight, right? And relaxing your eyes and feeling the movement chamber of the ribs. Let the arms flow open. And if they start to slide into your shoulders, kind of pressing back, that might feel good. I like to be kind of hooked up on the bolster so that I'm not tempted to try to squish my shoulders towards my spine. I just let the bolster kind of push it open. All right, and this takes a certain amount of capacity to be okay upside down, because it is sort of an interesting upside down variation. You're basically just on your back, but it's an elevated variation of the ribs and the heart. So let's take a few more breaths here. Open up the chest with the inhale. On the out breath, empty the lungs. Breathing through the nose. Exhaling as comfortable, the mouth letting go. And now if the arms get a little bit tingly, right, we know that there's the blood flow and the circulation is not the best if that starts to happen. So the adjustments I usually try to make is lifting up my ribs, letting my head really relax, because it's the tension could be in the pecs. Right, this area is extremely tense for most of us. If you just rub into it, right up into the shoulder parts, right, you go, oh, it's tender. So as we come out of the leg position, I want you, if you have sand on the upper thigh, just move it a little higher up to the ribs, and then bring the bottoms of the feet to the floor, bend the knees, and then bring the soles of the feet together, knees out into cobbler's pose. Yeah, if your feet happen to want to be up on the blanket or the bolster that you might have below, it's a little intense, but you might try it. But find some simplicity here with the soles of the feet to each other and the knees outwards. They kind of obey just the gravitational pull. That's all you're going to feel is that kind of, they just go down, right? Because the hinges of this hip area, the hip muscles here in the inner leg tract, right? Ball and socket joint here at the hip. So take a few more moments here. If you feel drawn to it, you can interlace your fingers at the roots and then push the hands towards the ceiling. And gradually move the arms towards the back of your space. Feel that reach through the arm channels, heart and lung. Now the head is tilted a little bit, right? You're not centered on the back of the skull necessarily, right? Some of us might be, but I like to get that feeling since my upper spine doesn't feel that very often with relaxation, right? If I'm walking around, I try to lift my chin up and hold it for a while. It's not very comfortable. So as you relax the grip of the hands, we're going to move the feet to the knees to point up, the bottoms of the feet touching down. I don't let the feet point up yet. Slide the sand off and let's turn the bolster. Okay, so you're going to slide back a little bit. Just trust that the back of your skull is centered on the blanket. Make sure the blanket's not under your shoulders whatsoever. That's key. And then walk the feet on the floor besides the bolster. Lift up the heels. And then as you slant back, you now find your upper back again without it lifted, right? So there'll be good things that come. Lift the hips and then push the bolster to the side so you have it across the back of the pelvis, horizontal. Just be sure that your pelvis is as far down on the bolster. That's the key, right? We don't want to be the bolster, we don't want it high up on even the thoracic. You want the bolster, actually, wait, you do want it up on the lumbar. So if you're not sure, and then bring the legs in. Those of you that aren't so sure, when you are on the bolster, it really should be, like I can maneuver this thing, as if I was going to go floating around on this thing. So the bolster is really high. It's not here, right? So my tush would be on the edge, and it's connecting across my lumbars, right? So I like to call it lumbars. Okay, but when you're here, we got the gist of it. If the blanket below is part of your situation going forward, that's fine. It's not going to bug you. You might like it, actually. But take the position so you're going to snuggle in. I like this. It has kind of a swaddling sense in my back. And then we'll take a ball between the knees. If you don't have a ball, use a block at the most narrow setting. And then open out the arms just to a T shape. Roll the shoulders back. It's like you're opening up that inner line of the arm through the inside line of the elbow to the palm. And then let the knees shift side to side. Feel as they rock, the movement tracking in that lower back. So that lumbosacral has this interesting kind of harmony here. But it is, remember, that's a place of stability. So when I do let the knees go side to side, my mid back gets a little bit of freedom. It can roam. Mid back roaming. You keep the chest open. If your shoulder kind of slides up as your knees go to one side, the opposite shoulder kind of slides. That's natural. Right? It doesn't have to stay pinned down, but feeling the cross fibers of the back. Let your eyes close for a few more threads of movement, breathing. Yeah, this is an interesting kind of hip medley coming up. All right, now when you come back into center, squeeze the ball, let the legs flow straight up a little bit higher. So from the knee to the feet, it's straight up to that vertical shape. And when the position, you're holding onto the ball. So make sure it's center of the knees to a location that you can feel the exact pressure into the ball. Yeah, the ball's not going to all of a sudden become a sliver. It's a responsive surface. So feel if you can isolate your arms open, chest open, kind of casual. I'm doing good here. And then the base of the body is really quite active. So I'm squeezing. That's like my maximum. That's it. Can't do any more without using other parts like my hands to squeeze the ball. But as I reach the thighs inwards, let the feet be pretty relaxed, just pausing here. And then bend the knees and take the ball out and grab a belt. Okay, so all that inner leg stuff, and this is probably good, I guess, to tap the adductors. So good to do upside down too. So as you get the belt, you're going to buckle up. You've already buckled up for some of us, so it's in a big loop, and then just let the feet reach out. It's not just feet, right? It's also the inner leg track. So you might want to tighten it up if it's too wide. Right? We don't want to create a panic situation in the hips here. But it's kind of interesting to notice how your hips kind of evolve with this work. I mean, this isn't a normal stance during the day, right? Even if you're standing upright. So kind of feel if your feet turn a little bit out, if they kind of go back to center, right? The thigh bones are just thigh bones. They're not trying to do anything specific, but your feet can move. And you want to feel like, oh, when my feet move at the bottom, It affects right here right in the center of gravity in your pelvis. So try to keep them like neutral, not too out, not too in. And if your blanket is really low, this might be a moment where you decide to fold it one more. And if you can relax into it, keep it low so your neck is not creating more roundness in your upper back. But again, this would be one where you could fold it one more. But I'm going to just keep working on this support in my cervical spine and try to be relaxed with it. So some of us might take it one more fold like so. Right? That actually feels better for me, although I was thinking I must do the other option. But if I have the contour just at my neck, push it down. So the idea would be my brain can feel kind of relaxed. All right. Yeah, some of you might do some tapotment, tapping on the inner leg, just while it's above the inside of the knee, but it feels below where your perspective is. Okay, so that focus on the draining of that fluid retention is real, right? We tend to have that we know we do that, retention in the legs. So any edema, I don't think we can say we exactly shift our inflammation in the body from this one, but you can say that the fluid retention reduces, right? We can say that. So when we have the legs in this reach, right, I want you to let the knees bend and feel that the knees, instead of them squeezing in and not pushing out obnoxiously, but feel them move a little bit outwards, right? We do feet together, knees out often. We've done that before. So bend the knees so you can reach for the belt like happy baby pose. Pull the belt fully so your feet come together. And then let's take the left leg down. And I want you to let if the bolster's down there, the blanket, it feels kind of nice. But bend the right leg and straighten. Don't worry about, is it going towards the wall? Is it going straight up? Just let your eyes close and feel the movement of bending and pushing into the belt. Meaning closing your eyes can help you sometimes find what works deep in the bones. Right, not a comparison, but feel bend. We're doing about 8 of these or so. Okay, so find where there's resistance, right? And we're going to make sure that belt loop is really wide, big loop. And you're going to place it either to the center-ish of the back of your head in brain float. You choose. If you decide no brain float for me, like this one, sand goes on the left thigh. Okay, you can do the same thing with the sand and the leg direction, but not have the belt under your head. So there's totally options here. So if I don't want this perspective, I can bring my hands inside the belt to the sides of my head and stretch the arms back. I think all directions are good on this one. I don't think there's one I like more than the other. I like the brain one because I've learned how to do it and adapt my neck into getting some good traction. For me, it feels a curious space at the back of my leg is stretching. I don't usually feel it at. So you might take this version. You might decide you want to work with your shoulders and your head resting on the blanket, this version. But either one, it's a leg float, isn't it? Either version. But relaxing your head back, whether it's in the belt or the blanket. And feeling where the reach is of your foot, and the sand on that opposite leg, let it make an impact. Okay, so if the sand is kind of falling off, then reset it so you can feel it at the top of the thigh, and it feels like it connects to your hip. And then if your foot at the base, I know we try to keep the toes upwards, but right now we're really focusing on the center beam of the body. Okay, not to say that doesn't affect your center beam, but really emphasize what you can work on. I don't have control of my foot right now as much as I like to, you know. I have control of the center body because I have my sand, I got my belt tracking my leg. Yeah. The leg ought to be kind of straight up versus trying to go over your chest. So you don't need to overdo, you're trying to drain out the leg, right? Fluid back towards the heart. That's an inversion. The reversing the gravitational effects on our heart and our lungs. Take a few more moments here. So feeling the belly rising and relaxing. Okay, now as we just shift to the other leg, you'll move the sand across the abdominals, right? So it gives a little pressure here to the diaphragm. So I have it right below my ribs, right below. And then I bring the left leg up. I like to kind of see what my balance will be here with my foot slipping into the belt. And sometimes I have to hold the back of my head because it's jarring. So as I lower the right leg down, you might have to reset this funny contraption around your head. Yeah, so the shelf at the back of the head, that's about where your belt, it might be a little higher than the shelf. And then as you have this cranial hold, right? This interesting craniosacral thing going on here. I really find it interesting. So I move the sand down the top of the right thigh. And you know, your sacrum area on the bolster may just not even have any issue in this shape. You just be content. So let contentment kind of brew in the center body, the pelvis, since it's lifted. There's all sorts of good circulation going on in there. And then the leg, as it's rising and it holds up, right? Draining. So getting that leg lifted so the heart can relax a little bit on the blood flow to that side. No, it's kind of busy all day long, huh? This has its own direction. Pump, pump, pump. But now it reverses the blood from the extremities back to the organs. One leg at a time, huh? And as your head leans back, if you don't prefer this on the second side or you want to break from it, you can bring your hands inside the belt to the sides of your head and reach back. So my thumb is kind of holding the belt at the webbing between the thumb and the index fingers. That's kind of nice reach. It's a different part of the arms, right, to work with. It's, you know, our daily habit is not this reach with the arms. So all of these can be, each of them has a good opportunity for circulation. Whatever you choose. And maybe the second foot is a little different. Maybe it does bow out. But it's, if you were to try to set it so you reach through the heel for a mini moment, just noticing the quirks one side to the next. And then we spend this whole time working on rebalance. Okay, now as I have this reach with the leg, we'll continue with left leg up. Okay, if you got right leg up, you'll just be doing opposites. That's all. There's only two legs to choose from. So I'm going to teach off of the left leg coming forward or going into the next line. So as I take the sand off the right thigh, I'm gonna just reach up, and I tend to just hold the belt with the right hand across the left leg to the right. And then I also like to give the right leg at the base some freedom. That's my preference. So if I bend the right leg at the bottom, then I can have more, more curve. I love the words contour, curve, just really working with the body zones where there's movement and kind of curving, okay? Not like straight, like everything has to be a straight line, A to B. So if you bend the knee, right, you might find, oh, that's kind of interesting, or maybe it's not. Pushing through the heel could be definitely exciting for the side of the leg, but bending could help you kind of bow into support of the knee. Crossing over, we'll get the sand on it pretty soon, actually, today. So working into our hip, we're going to work into the hip from being on our back first and then up to sitting today. Okay, so take that left leg to the sky. Hopefully it'll stay attached. Okay, now as you take the right foot up, push straight up into the feet. Okay, you might feel that nice arch in the lower back. You might feel the feet lean a little bit forward. See, for me right now, I feel like my feet are going down. But if I look in the screen, it's like they're straight up and down, but I feel like they're going this way, farther down. So it's kind of interesting. The idea is that we want to feel what's the right line. So it's straight up and down. And then maybe you'll close your eyes so you can feel just right when the leg bones are in the right position for being inverted. It's a little lower abdominal work, a little bit. And then lower the left leg down out of the belt and hold on to the belt with your left hand. And so as you cross the right leg over, the bottom leg could be touching onto the blanket, or you could bend the bottom leg and just get a little bit more lift of the right buttock, right? So if my left leg is straight down, I guess I feel a little stuck, okay? My left leg bends at the bottom. I have a little bit more freedom. Of course, if you're on the edge of your bolster and you're falling off of it, you can always kind of scoot yourself to the right side of the bolster. An elevated twist here, because you're lifted up. Okay, take a few more moments. Right arm could be open. Bottom leg can bend, or if you don't want to bend it, you don't have to. You might find these are important to have the blanket a little bit, folded a little higher, but working on the hip. Breathing. And just let gravity have you. If you feel a little bit stiff or not so confident in the coordination, really just breathing, just let the props hold you and lean you into the shapes. It really can go a long way. All right, bending the right knee. You're going to come back in center, and we're going to take our way back so our feet will be on the bolster. So I want you to slip the belt off. However, since you're kind of already with your belt here, take a look at make sure it's connected still, it's buckled up or cinched together. And you're going to take it so that the belt, you're going to tighten it and tighten the loop up. So it's small loop. Well, that's a little too small. The loop is small enough that it can go around your thigh. So let's try it. Okay, we'll bring the belt around the under the feet, above the knees, and I'm going to tighten it up. Okay, don't make it so tight you can't get off of this pose. Okay, so mine's kind of loose, So when I push out, I can hold it, but it's not so tight that I'm gonna really feel upset about it and worried. All right, so, and of course, when my knees are bending, my legs are kind of holding the belt into my leg. So knees to the chest, and I want you to feel how the back has this nice flexion, not just your spine, but all the other tissues. The organs get this compression. Yeah, that's true. Kind of flexion brings compression to the organs in this position. All right. So when you're ready to scoot the bolster, take your time. Just hands to the bolster. Nudge, 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 nudge. Okay. Then, I know it can sometimes be a big kaput down, but have the bolster close enough your hands could touch onto it. That's key. Okay. As I lower my feet on top, this feels like my bolster is too close for comfort. So I'm going to try to figure this out. I'm going to push it a little farther down so that my rear is not touching the bolster. That's just too close. Okay. Now, in the beginning, we had the shoulders rolling back and touching towards the floor. Now we got to kind of reset that one. So if your blanket's folded again, I want you to make sure it's really low. These are all important things for your neck. Okay. And then now tighten up the belt enough so that it is around the thighs, but it holds them at about hips distance. So you might have to touch to your hips and go, okay. The knees get excited about pushing out. They just can't believe that they could go this way. So hold it so the belt is as close to the knees as possible. Okay, you don't have to put it behind the knees. I don't think I've ever seen that taught. It would be not the best. So I'm going to have it just as I'm looking from this perspective. It's just, I guess to me it's below the knees, but if you were standing, it would be above. Okay, so get a little momentum here. Bring the arms down so the palms are on the floor. Feel that swaying motion of the knees towards the chest, that flexion of the spine. Breathe in, knees towards chest. Breathe out, feet to the bolster. So it's kind of little proofs of breath. Okay, now, as we lower our feet down, and this is now, we're going to push into the feet. Now, I like to go 1 foot at a time, like alternate, and just really get my sense of strength here. And then as I lift my hips up, right, I'm trying to get up into that supported drawbridge. My arms are palms down, but that's only temporary. So I want you to get a lift of the hips and feel that you can push out into the belt. Okay. You may have seen this pose in some textbooks. People use like 4 or 5 belts if you're in a studio with all the Iyengar luxuries of props, because you really want to hit this home in the quads, right? Get this lift. Okay, don't give up yet. Don't go down yet. If you have to go back down, that's okay. Take a block and place it at the second height, under the back of the pelvis. Now that's not as high as you probably are here, but just make peace with your hip muscles, so good, and your knees kind of resting out into the belt. If it feels like it's too tight, bring the knees in, loosen it. If it's not tight enough, bring the knees in and tighten it. So I know you want to have not too tight, not too loose. Okay. So now let the elbows press down like robot arms, and see if you can let them be elbows on the ground. But it's a tissue above that you're trying to roll under. Right. So now you look like you got these like chicken wings here. But you want to feel like the ribs stretch open, horizontal. Right? The belly definitely is the soft spot here. Yeah, you don't want to be tickled in this position, do you? So feel the softness in the core. Okay, the elbows are gonna just stretch down into the hands. If you have a long enough belt, this is kind of nice. You can get the belt below the block and hold on to it with the palms open towards the ceiling. And as I hold the belt, and finagle this, roll the arm bones around and in towards to the spine. Now you've really refined this opener of the chest, even if it seems like it's kind of, you're exaggerating it. Oh, your back will like it. And as we get old, right? So as another week goes by, right, this openness of the chest is so important for your lungs, right? Your ribs, your posture. You do what feels like it's appropriate level. Yeah. Now, see if you can just let the hands could stay holding the belt. I bet you half of us do that. It's a little extra. Sometimes it's not necessary. Let the legs stretch down. Give it a feel. Try. Let the legs extend down. But here's the deal, right? You're trying to open up the chest to help your back. Yeah. I prefer the knees bending personally, but this is where the pose eventually goes. So let the legs have that reach. Take a few more moments before we take them upside down. Open the chest, shoulders back and in. If the shoulders hurt, let go of the belt. Just let it go and cope with what you can with breathing and circulation. Remember, if you don't breathe, you're not going to help yourself out here. You need flow. Okay, now I like to hold the belt so I have something to hold on to as I bring the knees back in and I flow up. Now, you can tell this is a bit of a challenge, right, with the belt situation. So feel the tailbone press into that block. Okay, now if you want to tighten the belt up, go for it. But you know that means you have to take your hands up to the belt. So it's not at the knees, it's just towards the lower part of the center of the thigh. So it's not quite all the way up. That way the knees aren't going to turn outwards. Okay, so take a few more moments. I know this detail is maybe a bit much. So if you don't want to hold the belt, don't. But open up the chest. Do good yoga. If the legs are going a little bit back, you know they're really going back. So make sure they're straight up. Yep. It's like we got it up, straight up verticality. All right, now feeling kind of where the pelvis touches the block, that contour. And then as you bend through the knees, bending, chest gently opens, breathe. Okay, now we're gonna come out, yay. Okay, so relax the grip with the hands. Okay, you notice where as the knees bend, this belt situation is a little challenging. Okay, so I still want us to keep the belt though. So loosen it just a little bit. See if you can just go, maybe a few inches loosening, but give yourself enough so you can move your feet to the bolster. Okay, that's how we go. And then we lift up the hips by pushing our feet into the bolster, up off the block. The block's going to be kind of stuck to you. And then you'll slide the block away. And let's take the knees into the chest. And we'll start working on the area that you've been gripping up a lot, your glutes. So we'll take the belt off. Away it goes. And then a ball appears. If you don't have a ball, you can windshield wiper your knees side to side and massage the glute that way. So let's go with this here. We'll go with the ball. We'll start how we ought to start. Now, the ball is under the right buttock. And as we push onto the ball, you're going to move your hips side to side. It will probably make some sound. But feel that the ball is not on the back. It's not on my back at all. It's at my rear, where feels like thick, kind of stuck parts together. So feel the ball under you and roll across it. Try to move the skin across it to draw fluids into the tissues. Right, we're trying to rub this area to soften it up. Pretty key. Okay. Now, if the leg wants to go into figure 4, I think quite a few people comment on liking this. I find it just about the same as this for me, but it's up to you. And then go to the other rear. Okay, so you might let the knees shift over to the side and then push into the ball and feel the abdominals work a little bit. And as you press, again, you might take figure 4 pose. So the ball connection to that leg, that's the area you take the leg up to the opposite knee. All up to you. Okay. But try to push around into the ball so that there creates a little bit of heat. And if it's just heat and it's softening it up, that's the key. If you need a higher blanket right now, you notice you're kind of gritting your teeth. You might need some more support with the upper body. Okay, so we're going to do a counter twist. And so what I want you to do is just let the body weight kind of fall into the right buttock. Take the right leg up and swing that right leg to cross it over the left. And then the knees are going to go right. Okay. Okay. So I'm just showing this. This is a little bit of it, maybe perhaps different than we've done with the hip. I don't think sand on the hip is a great move on this. It's a pretty deep stretch here for the IT band on the left side. I don't mind the ball just being kind of stuck there. It kind of initiates that movement. But some of us might go, well, it's just kind of in the way. I don't want that. If you decide you're so needing a sandbag, wait, we're going to do something right after this one that you can add sand. Okay. So my hips are not, right horizontal. They're tilted for the benefit of the stretch into the exterior left thigh, right? The rotators on this side. Okay, now bring the knees up center. Okay, keep the same leg on top. That's key. And then I'm going to lift up my rear and move the hips to the right and then bring the knees to the left. This is where you might add your sand and maybe even a block or a ball over on that left side. My knees are not going far enough down to use the ball. Okay, that's okay. Even if your block is just below your knee, if you add sand, your knee's going to go down, right? It's going to go down towards the block. So if this is too much, the variation instead would be knees together to the left and sand across. Then you probably don't need any block, okay? So if you don't use a block, it's fine. But the right leg is still over the top of the left, knees to the left. Okay. Sand might be more comfortable really pushed down, so it almost feels like it touches the other leg. Kind of an interesting variation. We haven't been a long time since we did this one. These two combined. Okay, right arm is open, and there doesn't have to be straight lines here. Remember, curves, contours really emphasize the variations in our bones and our muscles, right? How things are kind of peeling away here. But this is the hip peel. Let your head roll to the opposite side where the knees are going. And let the arms just be casual wherever they end up. Yeah, if the circulation is kind of tingly in your armpit area, right, the way to help that out is going to be to work with gently opening up the ribs, lifting the sternum. But for me on this one, I start to feel that. So what I'm going to do is bend my right elbow, bend it kind of close into my mat, and then feel my hand rest out. That way I can open up my chest. Okay, if I let my arm just stretch straight as far out as possible, right? Okay, it does create it looks opening, but the chest is, it's like the ribs are a barrel, right? So I'm trying to rotate my elbow down and get some circulation into the heart, lungs. Take a few more moments. Okay, now when we come out, these are big mid-body things that we're doing in the abdominals, the anterior and posterior parts. So when you come out, just bring the knees in the center and windshield wiper. So I'll take the legs apart, uncross, and just swing the knees. So the hips kind of feel like they're transfixed in just right into the center piece, and the knees are doing the movement across. Okay? All right. So now we take it into the second side, And remember, it's IT band, and you just stretched yours with the sand on it. Just now, we're going to do that same side. So we're going to change the leg crossing. Left leg up and over, right leg. Left leg over, right leg. Good that we got just two. And the knees are going to go left. I know, you just had your knees that direction. I got the program down here. But it is the second leg on top. The right IT band is stretching. The low back is peeling up. Okay? It's peeling out. So feeling that wave, so it's quite a rotation, and it's a lot of curve and contour in the body, I think, on this one, a lot of curve. So head rolls to the right. If it's too much on the knee, back off. Right, you can always take like a figure four pose, like so. Slowly go to the left. You could do this kind of thing. You could have the ball besides the left upper outer thigh. This could work too if crossing the leg is just way too much pressure. You know, you got to work up to some of these things. And in the beginning, if you haven't done counter twist work, it's, yeah, I kind of like that movement, deep movement across the fibers. The side of the legs is crazy interesting, the upper outer leg to stretch. So helpful for our back. Okay. So take a moment here. This is the counter twist, so we don't stay in it quite as long as the twist. It's still a twist. Bring the knees up. Okay. Back of the pelvis centers. Worth your time on this one to take a moment and center. Okay, left leg still on top. It's crossing, right? So it's looped around. And then as you bring your hips, now I almost did the incorrect move, put my foot to the left side of the bolster. Now I want to push into my right foot on the bolster, move my hips to the left, right? You can tell it makes it easier. And then bring the knees to the right. Okay? Some of you might think, well, I want to make it harder. Well, I don't think you want to make it harder on your spine. You want to do some nice openness and stretching across the sacroiliac area as well. So the lumbosacral has a nice amount of movement, but it's still curved, right? So now you can add the sand if it's very wrapped. If you feel, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to unwrap my leg here. Take the time. It's a nice amount of circulation in the legs, the veins in the legs, good stuff. But if you don't like it, you don't have to, right? You can have the knees just side to side so the legs are not crossed, knees over to the right, and sand on. You can do that. Yeah, you have options. And if it's the legs, they're not going to get tingly on this one. It's going to be kind of the opposite likely. And this arm area on one side could be a whole different, volume of blood flow, circulation. You really want to get that circulation into the chest. This is the heart and lung meridian, so there's more to talk about than that. So as I feel that openness, I like to bend the elbow so it's easier, right, on my joint. Some of us will go really reach and grip, but try to make it softer in the ribs, in the kidneys, so that low back waist is going to feel a little sweep of circulation. Breathing. And just take a few more breaths here. About 4 more cycles of breath. Nice work. As you start to bring your head back center, and then sweep the hip by just letting the sand fall or push it away. Now, if I try to pull my hip right now with the sand, like it is more stretch, it might be a little counterproductive for my back. So I'm going to actually try to up over the hump there, over the side, And then you want to find some resilience work here in your back. So when I bring the knees back center, okay, let's take a couple bridge poses without this bolster. So push it away, get that bolster away, bring your feet to the floor, swing the hips back in center. Okay, push into your feet. You think they're about hips distance, who knows? They might be turning out, but you want to push down to the heels and then work on feeling the quads stretching, front of the thigh. Just lift and lower. Okay, just lift and lower. Now the blanket might feel too high. You can always lower it down. You can always get rid of it too. You can just slide it back. Go without it for a few. Just feel how interesting it is on the neck. You know how this area is so rounded. It's hard to get this lengthened sometimes. It's just natural. I'm sure any of us that are getting older, this is going to happen up here. So you have to work with the neck sometimes. Now, next time you lift up, really implement that lift of the quads. I like to work on the heels pressing, but sometimes it feels nice to, again, this front line of the thigh bone. I know it's challenging to stretch it. Okay. Now, as you lower the spine down, spine lowers easily into the back. I mean, you think of your spine as your back, but you've got those different segments. So as you come up, I would work with the length in the core. So push into your thighs. Okay, I got too excited about getting upwards, but push into the thighs. So the heel of my hand is at the top of the thigh, right at the thigh lid, the connection to the pelvis, right? It's all there. It's all still there. Okay, so push into the thigh like you're trying to move your thigh up towards your knee. So push firm. Okay, now one more time. Push, push, push. Somehow this feels like it's stuck. Okay, now lift up the hips so you get the thighs. This is what you're trying to get to stretch. This area that gets bunched up. You want this to reach. Thigh, thigh-ward, knee-ward. Okay, now lift the heels this last time. Okay, scoop the tailbone under as you lower the spine down. Okay, now bring the knees fully into the chest. Hold firm. If you're not comfortable rolling up this way, don't. You can roll to the side and push yourself up. But roll up, maybe. Okay, take a blanket from back behind you to sit on. And yeah, we're going to do a couple seated series that I'm excited about. So let's just get our blanket set. So you're going to take one blanket. It's in a quarter fold. It's off to the side yard. Okay. Then you're going to take your bolster. And if your wall is nearby, well, I'm just going to set mine at the wall because what I want you to find is that you're seated on one of your folded blankets. You're going to take a block and you're going to place it forward, okay, on your mat. And then, okay, let's see how this is going to go. Your bolster's on the other side. Okay. So your right foot's going to go up onto the block. So the foot is turned out. If this is too low under your, you just feel like you need to get higher on your seat to sit like this, use your other blanket under your seat or another bolster. Take the left leg, stretch it out, and forward we go. Far reaching forward fold. Okay, so this just starts to wake up our hip a little more. Now, if you're not sure, what is she doing? I think you can see it okay, but I'll go kitty corner, so maybe it'll be a better explanation here. So my block, and again, if I sit on more height, it's easier. So if you're wondering, how can I make this doable? Just sit up on more height, okay? But this could be an interesting process. So I lean forward. My left leg is out to the side, so it's kind of easy going. You can bend your left knee. It feels like you can't quite get a lift out of your back. And yes, most of us are going to find a rounding back here. So I'm trying to reach my ribs. Okay, now just switch sides. So right leg out, left foot up on the block, left foot turns out. The block is at the lowest setting. I don't think going any higher is going to be achievable here. So lean forwards. Okay, feel that circulation into the left leg. I feel everything, but feels like little bits of this and that that are finding some coordination. Okay, do the first side one more time before we go to our hands and knee work. But do the first side, so the inner thigh, you're kind of combing through it. Breathe. It's like you're trying to load some information in your leg. Okay, and then take it to the other side. This is a good core one, right? If you were to go foot on and then foot over. The things we do with yoga props. Left foot is on top of the block. Lean forward, so it's far reaching. Take both feet out, so it's a wide stance, and reach forward to the bolster. If you lift up your chest, breathe. If you lower your chest, breathe. Okay, now come back and let's put our, we're gonna put our bolster to the side yard. We're gonna turn, so our feet are towards the wall. And yeah, you might want a blanket here. What we're gonna need is a blanket perhaps under our knees, and have the support of the blanket so that when you stretch the legs back, right, you're going to have ease on the knees. You can tell I'm kind of thinking this one through. So bolster is on the side. Blocks are both going to be there for you for your hands. Okay? All right. So take the blocks forward, bring your hands a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. And as you come into cat pose, you're going to press into the feet and round the back, chin towards the chest. And inhale, arch the spine, chest forward. Exhale, round the back. And the chin is probably not going to touch the chest, perhaps, but you get the idea of the movement tracking of the spine, right, and of the hips. It's not quite as fun as when we're on our back, is it? Okay. It's not quite as releasing. All right, now next time you come back to table, I want you to walk the hands a little farther out on the mat. So if I turn my hands out, it's so easier on my wrist, right? So turn them out a little bit and then lean the hips down. So it seems like it's an upward dog, and you're going to stretch the chest just a little bit up. Okay, you get to prescribe your intensity. So again, we were doing that bridge pose with our hands pushing our thighs. This isn't that different. I mean, it is in a lot of ways, but it's the idea of that stretch, okay? And then come back. Oh, Floy is back. That's great. Okay, stretch the spine. I was kind of trying to figure out who's going. Keep a vision on the group. Okay, then come forward. So alternate that sweep. Chest is lifting. Breathe. And then chest is still stretching with my hips moving back. This is still a chest opener. Okay, now let's take about 2 more waves through the spine. You make it kind of wavy. That means maybe you move your hips a little bit, or you just go forward and back. Okay. Now take a downward dog. You choose. Fingers spread out. You bring the hands a little closer, toes under, lift up the knees. You might stretch your heels towards the base. I like to have them a little bit up at the wall, a little lifted, because I'm focusing on this upper body strength and flexibility, right? This is the perfect blend of flexibility and strength, right? Okay. Now you can either use the wall to kind of rebound and spring off of, or you can come down to your knee, but you're going to step the right foot forward. And if you go, well, I can't get there, here's a tip. So if you find that's difficult, bring the knees down to the blanket, take your blocks in, okay? That will make a huge difference to step your foot forward. So as you step forward, we're going to lift the back knee up so the heel pushes into the wall, and I stretch my chest forward. Inhale, and exhale, just straighten the right leg, head towards the leg. Inhale, lunge, left knee maybe touches the blanket. Go through the legs full range. And then exhale, push back, head to the right leg. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Breathe. And inhale, bend the knee, step the left foot to the right foot. Take the feet hips distance or closer in. And going into your forward bend, which might mean you hold the elbows, you touch onto the blocks, you bring them up. Maybe you take them a little farther forward. Yeah, there's some kind of neat forward bend options you can do in restorative. So, you know, another thing I've kind of played with before is just put the block set same height and a bolster on top, and then try to work my way this way. Why am I doing this? Right, so my back can reach versus this slumpy, right? I don't want to be so slumpy. So I'm trying to work on that strength, right? And that flexibility. So you might do this, let your head lower down. You might think, yeah, I like the normal ones where I take the forward bend, hold elbows. Perfect. So take a few more moments in the forward bend of choice. Yeah, maybe you have to swing your arms up to the ceiling right now because it feels like you got to do that. So go for it. Okay, now with the knees bending, you're going to shift. So if you got a bolster on your blocks, well, put it to the side and then take your blocks back by your feet and step the right foot back. Proceed into that lunge so that right heel touches the wall. And as you feel the left knee above the ankle, not over the toes, just above the ankle, you're going to push back a little bit into the heel and then stretch the left foot up. So if you're not sure, when I straighten the front leg, I let the toes lift up. And then as I lower the left foot, I lower the back knee down and stretch my chest forward and up, arching. Breathe. And then come back. If you find that this arching feels more beneficial here for your bones, your muscles, this one, you might stay with it a little longer. Because for me, it takes me a few moments to get my back hip and my quad to stretch down this area to release. Yeah, and then come back. And part of the practice is coordination, right? Some muscle memory and coordination. So repetition, breathing and movement, bones, breath. Pick another motion here. Okay, now we're going to come into pigeon. So what I want us to try for is to have a bolster. So you're going to slide it in under the left thigh. And if you want another blanket under your knee, you could add one. So that's why I do fold that second one. I think this is going to be okay. So I'm going to have my bolster horizontal under my left thigh. My right knee is on the blanket. And you'll take your blocks a little farther forward and walk the left foot toe, heel to the right side of your mat. And then, yes, sometimes you drop into your left hip. Kaput, right? Here's another thing. If you find coming down on the hip is a tricky one, from the get-go, you can put a ball on the bolster right to that left side. And then as you cross over, see if I can even coordinate this. Okay, then I can lean into it, and it's just easier, right? You might have to lean forward quite a bit. I don't mind being the model of awkwardness. And I put the ball higher up to my left rear. Okay? And that way the glute, right, or the glutes, right, can start to stretch and push outwards here. So even if the ball is in a completely awkward spot, but it feels like, oh, it's kind of pushing things to stretching, you can use it. Or just don't. Okay, settle in. Left foot is crossed in front of the bolster, and my heel, and the front heel is right next to the bolster on the floor. It's not on top of it, but the knee is down. Remember, the hips can be up. You can use a block or a ball. So if you decide ball, no, you can put a block there as well. But having blocks under you or the floor is going to deepen the stretch if I go a little further down. Right? If I walk my hands to the right, even better. Okay, but you choose. Sometimes simple is the best medicine for these shapes. Simple shape. Take a few more moments, feeling where the hip is stretching. And just feel that natural arch through the lower back. Now it's kind of interesting using the bolster and pigeon is that you're pushing a bit into the knee, right? You're pushing forward and down on the left lower leg bone and moving the left upper thigh to turn out. So, and most of us probably feel, I think, and I've had knee stuff, it's okay. Actually, you're putting a little weight bearing into it, right? So as you come back to shift to the second side, kind of feel that the left hip, the circulation with the knee out. Okay, you might close your eyes and go, okay, that's about where the angle is now. When you switch sides, you can just stay seated on your bolster and then swing the left leg back as you bring the right knee forward, right? And then you come on down to that left thigh down. If you're not sure about the ball idea or the block, remember you can sit on it, so you just push it back and it supports your hip, and then you can still sink down. Okay, but if you feel like, well, I kind of like something, but not the ball, you could try to use a block, or what's even nicer, sometimes could be a blanket. Some of you are just fine where you are, I'm sure, but these are nice things to know just in case you need a little extra support. Just the blanket would be on the right side. It wouldn't be under both seats, as if you had two seats, but both sitting bone spaces. It would just be one of them. The one you're stretching. Okay, right and left down, lower down. Center the waist, center the stretch. Breathing. And just be somewhat mesmerized on the movement of the torso. But we're going to link into the waist next. We're going to do a full little waist series, side stages and then legs up. So it's going to be nice to kind of link up into the center of the body. Okay, so feel the weight into your hip. Breathing. Okay, remember, if you have a blanket, it's not going to be quite as intense. So just know that if it's too much, you can always take too much ease, right? Take the blanket out. Okay, those of you that walk your arms over to the opposite side of the hip that you're stretching, hands go to the left side. And then bring the hands back center. And this is going to work good. So we're on the right hip. So we're going to just let the weight lean to the right hip. And then you're going to swing the left leg forward and come down onto the seat in front of the bolster, or just next to it. Maybe the front is on the other side on our minds, but you're next to the bolster. And stack up your blankets towards the wall. Okay, you want to have space between the bolster and the blankets for your arm. And you're going to just shift up, touching towards the bolster. And then those of us that have sand, we're going to grab onto that, have it nearby our knee. And then if you use a ball for side sage, take the ball so it's on the inside of the left knee. Now you want to be close enough that you can touch the wall. So this is the difference on this one. Okay. So take a sandbag up to that outer left hip or the side. Okay. And then I'm going to lean into my ribs, the curve of my rib area, and then bring the left arm overhead. Okay. To keep that reach, you can let your head relax down to the blanket. You can, if it feels like the wall's too close, you can do things like walk your hand down, down. I like to have it so I'm pretty just right. You gotta find the just right reach. That may be too close, but I can feel my palm touch to the wall. So you feel if you can let your ribs stretch open. If you decide no wall is needed, you might let your arm just drape over your head, right? Some people will reach around towards the blanket and kind of hold there. Or bring the left arm open. So make a choice that feels like, oh, good circulation for my ribs. Breathing. Okay, now as you feel that stretch through that left arm, extend through the ribs, weight into the hip. And then as you slide out, you're going to be opening the chest. So come out, let the sand fall off. And what's kind of nice on this one is you can roll to the back and you can reach back to the wall for a moment, like push your hands to the wall. Yeah, it's a bit of a back bend, right? So my hands push the wall, stretching, feeling the difference in my shoulders, right? One might be dull, one might be achy, trying to start to release the elbows to bend and then start to turn to the other side. Now you do move your hips to the right under you, and you roll so you have that contour, okay? So the left arm is between the blanket and the bolster or blankets. The sand goes to the side of the right hip, right? So I get a feeling of that support, and then that right arm stretches over. Okay? So feeling that reach through the torso. Yeah, if the right leg can stretch further back, go for it, because we still want to enhance that circulation in the quad, the psoas, and a little bit of hip flexor-ish awareness. Okay, enjoy that. Take a few moments. His cat paw could not open that door. All right. Yeah, and I find that if I'm too close, I can feel kind of smushed, right? In my just that I need more length. So you can always move it around, especially the wall one. It's kind of a fun one to play with. Sometimes when you're too close, it's easier on your shoulder too. And the things you learn about your arm position into the rotator cuff. Oh my, complicated stuff. But sometimes you can simplify it by being closer to the wall, easier to stretch out through the ribs, the arm. We'll take a few more moments here to really replenish the side body. Feel the circulation in the side. Okay, now as we feel the waist reaching, okay, notice the connection of shoulder, and then when the arm lowers down, the connection down into the hip with the sand, however you have it, it might be on your ribs, it might be on the actual bone of the hip side. Okay, this area in the low back and the hip is going to help us get into our final inversion, right? So you might just wave your arm a little bit open and then back in towards the left side, and then roll yourself. Now, if you've got sand, it's just going to pull the muscles, and sometimes that feels nice, but keep it easy peasy. So roll to the left, keep it restorative. Okay. Now this could be interesting. So when I roll to the left and I come around, I'm going to move my bolster because that's what I want at the wall. Okay. And then I'm going to take my blankets. I'm going to go for a blanket on the bolster so I get a little bit higher in my pelvis, a little more arch. You might go, nah, I like the one bolster and one blanket under my head situation. So go with what feels like you can, it's doable. Okay, so sand is nearby. We're going to take what's called Viparita Karani, so reverse action. So reverse action to the brain and the heart to get everything on so it's comfortable as far as your top and everything. And then you're going to sit on the edge of the bolster. Okay, so I'm on the edge, like I've got a little teeter-totter going on here. The other side's lifting up. And then I'm going to lower my shoulder down and roll. My legs swing up, right? You can almost never get far enough on one side of the bolster to swing the legs up. And then I'm going to try to situate my lower back. The higher the height under your hips, it'll be a bit of a challenge to coordinate, I guarantee, but it's worth the feeling. I guess it's that we do the practice to feel it's a bit altering, but I think deep inside, it's replenishing, is what I would say. It's not like I'm losing, but I feel kind of cleansed. It's different, right? So the tailbone is on the bolster. I have my bolster a little bit away from the wall now. I push it away. Now I feel better with my heels. And then take your sand bag, right? You don't have to put it on your feet. You might want to have weightless legs today. So if you decide to be weightless, you can go ahead and put sand maybe on the belly, okay? But the sand on the feet is quite supportive of that lymph drain, that focus of reversing, right? The blood back to from the extremities to the vital organs, right? And here in this first little pool in the belly. There's two pools that get the kind of the dump, right? It's the abdominals, then up to the thoracic duct, and then right at the throat, the endocrine glands get this nice amount of circulation here. Okay, so if you have an eye pillow, put that on over your eyes. If your blanket's too high under your head, you can slide it back and lower it. Let your arms release, and then just receiving the practice. By doing just the simple things at creating effective like cleanse in the body. So feeling as the legs touch the wall, reverse flow back to the heart. And some days you really notice that connection, those subtle below surface sensations, and some days it's just not there. So trust the process. Belly moves with the breath. Now with the inhalation filtering through the nose, belly full, And as you exhale, letting go. Now, as you start to shift your feet just a little bit away from the wall, and it's also the whole unit of a leg. And then it's like a uni leg, right? When you have something on the feet, the branches of the circulation channel right back towards the pelvis, the opposite of prolapse for the pelvic organs here. It's a good one to hold a little weight on the bottom of the body, just feeling that pressure. Nice little revival for our legs. And then as you bend through the legs, you can feel that hinging into the pelvis and the hips. A little bit of pressure, then take the sand and you can toss it. Might be kind of cathartic, huh? Toss the sand or toss it overhead with your feet. And then bring the feet to cobbler's pose. Maybe the feet are kind of high up and more of a diamond. You know, you certainly can choose your variation of intensity, but feeling how the feet touch, the heels might not be able to touch anymore on this one because gravity's going to pull the legs a little further. And then as you bring the knees towards your chest, just take a simple experience of being one more moment upside down, pelvis is lifted, and then rock a little side to side. And then as you shift on the pelvi, roll either direction. You only get to go one direction, I believe. And then come around. Take a moment to sit, feel the support, the balance of the hips and the spine just above. You know, kind of feeling like a whole body embodying, right, the awareness. As you embody, bring the hands to each other. And as you balance the inhale, breathing in slow, breathing in wellness. And on the exhalation, bowing into that space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste.